Man alone was seen with the chief's daughter. Next day, he was dragged before the entire tribe. The rope burns cut deeper with each step. Dust clouds swirled around weathered moccasins as they dragged him across the hardpan toward the circle of faces painted in ochre and ash. Blood trickled from his split lip, mixing with the grit between his teeth. The morning sun blazed mercilessly overhead, casting sharp shadows that seemed to point accusingly at his bound form. Thaddeus Crane had faced down rustlers, survived 3 winters alone in the Colorado Territory, and once stared down a grizzly with nothing but a broken rifle. But nothing had prepared him for this moment. Nothing had prepared him for the weight of 200 pairs of eyes boring into him like hot coals. Chief Map sat motionless on his elevated seat of buffalo hide and carved cottonwood. His weathered face revealed nothing, but his knuckles were white where they gripped his ceremonial staff. The eagle feathers adorning his headdress barely stirred in the still air, as if even the wind held its breath. The warriors who had captured him at dawn spoke in hushed Lakota, their words lost to Thaddeus but their meaning crystal clear. He had crossed a line that should never have been crossed. He had touched something sacred, something forbidden. Ayanna, even thinking her name sent fire through his chest. The daughter of Chief Mape, promised to the war chief of a neighboring tribe since childhood. The woman whose laugh could make sunflowers turn their faces toward her voice. The woman whose dark eyes had captured his soul the moment he first saw her gathering sage by the creek 6 months ago. The woman who had kissed him beneath the cottonwoods just yesterday evening. 3 days earlier, the autumn trading season had brought Thaddeus to the Lakota camp with a pack train of goods from Denver City. Coffee, sugar, iron tools, ammunition, and bolts of colorful cloth that the women examined with careful fingers. He had been coming to this camp for 2 years now, building trust slowly, word by word, trade by trade. Chief Map had always received him with cautious respect. Thaddeus spoke enough Lakota to conduct business and had never cheated them or brought whiskey like some traders did. He paid fair prices for buffalo hides and beadwork, and his goods were always exactly what he promised they would be. But this time had been different. This time, Ayanna had been there when he arrived. She had grown from the shy 16-year-old he had glimpsed on his first visit into a woman of stunning beauty and quiet strength. Her long black hair caught the afternoon light like raven wings, and when she smiled, it was as if the whole prairie bloomed around her. She moved with the grace of a deer, but her eyes held the intelligence of someone who understood far more than she revealed. The first day of trading, she had helped translate when his Lakota failed him. Her English was surprisingly good, learned from a missionary who had passed through years before. When their fingers accidentally touched while examining a bolt of blue calico, the contact sent lightning through both of them. "This color," she had said softly, her eyes never leaving his, "reminds me of the sky just before dawn." He had given her 3 yards of the fabric without accepting payment, claiming it was a gift to honor her father's hospitality. Chief Map had frowned but said nothing. The second day, she had appeared by his campsite just outside the village perimeter. She brought him fresh buffalo meat and stayed to share the evening meal. They talked as the sun set, her voice like music as she described the changing seasons on the prairie, the migration patterns of the buffalo herds, the stories her grandmother had told her about the old days. Thaddeus found himself telling her about his own journey westward, about the farm in Ohio where he had grown up, about the restlessness that had driven him beyond the Mississippi River in search of something he could never quite name. Until he realized he had been searching for her. "My father says you are different from other white men," she had said as the first stars appeared. "He says you see us as people, not as obstacles to be removed or curiosities to be studied. Your father is a wise man. He is also a worried man. The soldiers at Fort Robinson grow more demanding each month. They want more land, more promises, more of our children sent to their schools." Her voice carried a sadness that made his chest tighten. "He knows changes are coming that will test everything we are. Thaddeus had wanted to take her hand then, to promise her that he would stand between her people and whatever storms were approaching. But he had held back, knowing the danger such a gesture would bring to them both. The third day, she had not come to his camp. He had completed his trading and prepared to depart, his pack animals loaded with buffalo robes and intricately beaded moccasins that would bring good prices in Denver City. But as he was adjusting the pack ropes for the journey, she had appeared like a spirit materializing from the tall grass. "Walk with me," she had whispered. They had followed the creek away from the village, moving through groves of cottonwoods whose leaves rustled like whispered secrets overhead. Neither spoke until they reached a small meadow where wildflowers still bloomed despite the approaching winter. "I cannot stop thinking about you," she had said simply, her directness taking his breath away. "Ayanna, you know, this is impossible. Your father, your people, the promises that have been made. I know what has been decided for me. I have known since I was a child that I would be given to Dakota of the Oglala band to strengthen the alliance between our tribes. I have accepted this fate as a daughter should." Her voice trembled slightly, "but my heart refuses to accept it." She had stepped closer then, close enough that he could smell the sage smoke in her hair, see the flecks of gold in her dark eyes. "In 3 days the ceremony will bind me to him forever. Tonight is all we have." What happened next would haunt him for the rest of his life, whether that life lasted minutes or decades. She had reached up and touched his face with her fingertips, tracing the line of his jaw as if memorizing it. When she stood on her toes to kiss him, he was lost. The kiss had lasted an eternity and an instant. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard, and he could see tears glistening on her cheeks. "I will remember this moment when I am old and gray," she had whispered. "When I am sitting by another man's fire, I will close my eyes and remember the taste of your lips, the way your hands feel in my hair. Ayanna, we could leave. Tonight. I have supplies, horses, knowledge of the trails. We could go to California or Oregon Territory, somewhere far from all of this." She had smiled then, but it was the saddest smile he had ever seen. And what kind of life would that be? Always running, always looking over our shoulders, knowing that we had brought shame to my father and bloodshed to my people? You would grow to hate me for what our love had cost. I could never hate you. Perhaps not, but you would hate yourself. They had held each other as the sun set, neither willing to be the first to let go. When full darkness finally forced them apart, she had pressed something into his hand. A small medicine pouch made of soft deerskin, decorated with tiny blue beads that matched the calico he had given her. "So you will not forget," she had said, and then she was gone, vanishing into the night like the wild thing she was. He had returned to his camp and lain awake until dawn, staring at the stars and feeling the small pouch warm against his palm. When the sun rose, he had packed his gear with mechanical precision, trying not to think about what this day would bring. But someone had seen them together. Someone had watched their farewell embrace and carried word back to the village before he could even break camp. The war party had surrounded him as he was leading his pack animals away from the creek. 20 mounted warriors with painted faces and weapons ready, their ponies dancing nervously in the morning mist. He had not resisted when they bound his hands and took his guns. There would have been no point. Even if he had managed to kill a few of them, it would only have sealed Ayanna's fate along with his own. Now, as he knelt in the dust before the assembled tribe, he could see her standing with the other women. Her face was a mask of composure, but her hands were clenched so tightly at her sides that her knuckles showed white against her copper skin. She wore the blue calico he had given her, and the sight of it made his heart clench like a fist. Chief Mop rose slowly from his seat. The murmuring of the crowd died away until the only sounds were the whisper of wind through prairie grass and the distant call of a hawk circling overhead. When the chief spoke, his voice carried the weight of centuries. "Thaddeus Crane, you have traded with our people in good faith for 2 summers. You have shown respect for our ways and dealt honestly in all your transactions. For this, you have earned our trust. He paused, his dark eyes searching Thaddeus's face. But trust, once broken, cannot be mended like a torn hide or a broken bow. The chief began to pace slowly around the kneeling figure, his moccasins silent on the packed earth. Last night, you were seen embracing my daughter by the creek. You were seen stealing from her what belongs to another man, taking liberties that no unmarried woman should grant to any man, white or red. Thaddeus opened his mouth to speak, but Mop silenced him with a raised hand. Do not compound your offense with lies. Little Crow saw you together. He watched you kiss her, watched you hold her as if she were your woman instead of the promised bride of War Chief Dakota. A ripple of anger passed through the watching warriors at the mention of Dakota's name. The Oglala war chief was known throughout the territory for his fierce temper and his skill in battle. The insult to his honor would demand blood payment. The penalty for what you have done is clear, Mappa continued. Our laws, passed down from our grandfathers' grandfathers, decree that any man who defiles a promised woman shall die. The method of his death is left to the discretion of her father. The chief stopped directly in front of Thaddeus, close enough that their eyes were level. In those weathered features, Thaddeus could see not just a leader enforcing tribal law, but a father whose heart was breaking. However, Mop said, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper, before I pass judgment, I will hear what you have to say, speak truthfully, and perhaps your death will be swift. Lie to me, and you will beg for the mercy of the wolves before the sun sets again. Thaddeus slowly rose to his feet, his bound hands making the motion awkward. When he spoke, his voice was steady despite the fear clawing at his chest. Chief Mop, I will not dishonor your daughter or myself with lies. Yes, I kissed Ayana by the creek. Yes, I held her in my arms. But what passed between us was born of love, not lust. I would rather die than see her shamed or harmed by my actions. A murmur ran through the crowd at his words. It was rare for a condemned man to speak so boldly in the face of certain death. Love, Mop repeated, as if tasting the word. A white man speaks to me of love for my daughter when he knows she is promised to another. When he knows his touch brands her as unfaithful in the eyes of all who witness this day. I know the pain my actions have caused, and I accept responsibility for them. But I will not pretend that what I feel for Ayana is anything less than the deepest love of my life. Chief Mop studied him for a long moment, then turned to address the assembled tribe in rapid Lakota. Thaddeus caught only fragments, but the tone was clear. The chief was explaining the situation, laying out the facts for all to hear. When he finished, an elderly woman stepped forward from the crowd. Her face was deeply lined and gray streaks ran through her long braids, but her back was straight and her voice carried authority. I am Winona, mother of Mappa, grandmother of Ayana, she announced in accented but clear English. I have lived through 70 winters and I have seen much. I would speak before judgment is passed. Mop nodded respectfully to his mother, and she moved to stand between him and Thaddeus. This white man traded honestly with us for 2 seasons. He learned our language, respected our customs, paid fair prices for our goods. When other traders brought firewater to poison our young men, he brought only useful things. When soldiers came seeking guides to hunt down our Cheyenne cousins, he refused their gold and rode away without speaking our location. She paused, her sharp eyes studying Thaddeus intently. But more than this. 3 moons ago, when the spotted sickness came to our children, he gave us his entire supply of blankets without asking for payment. When our hunters were delayed by early storms and our people faced hunger, he left half his food supplies and asked for nothing in return. The old woman turned to face the crowd, her voice growing stronger. I ask you, is this the behavior of a man who sees us only as savages to be used? Or is this a man who has come to see us as his people? Several warriors shifted uncomfortably at her words. The deeds she described were well known throughout the tribe, and many families owed their lives to Thaddeus's generosity during the previous harsh winter. Grandmother speaks truth, admitted a young warrior named Bear Killer. When my son was dying of the lung fever, this white man gave us the medicine that saved his life. He asked for no payment, not even thanks. And when the cavalry patrol was seeking our camp last spring, added another man, he met them on the trail and sent them 20 miles in the wrong direction. We watched from the ridges as he argued with their captain, refusing to guide them to our village. Chief Mop raised his hand for silence, but his expression had grown thoughtful. These things you say are true, but they do not change what happened by the creek. They do not erase the dishonor done to Dakota or the shame brought upon my daughter. Father, the single word cut through the tension like a blade. Ayanna stepped forward from among the women, her chin raised defiantly despite the tears streaming down her cheeks. My daughter, return to your place. This matter does not concern you. This matter concerns me more than anyone here, she replied, her voice growing stronger with each word. It is my honor that is being questioned, my future that hangs in the balance. I claim the right to speak, and shocked silence fell over the gathering. For an unmarried woman to address the tribal council without permission was unprecedented, but the ancient laws did grant her the right to defend her own honor if she chose to claim it. Mop's jaw tightened, but he could not deny her claim without breaking sacred tradition. Speak then, daughter, but know that your words may seal both your fate and his. Ayanna walked slowly to stand beside Thaddeus, her presence lending him strength even as it multiplied his terror for her safety. My people, you have known me since I drew my first breath. You watched me learn to walk, to ride, to work with beads and quills as my grandmother taught me. You know I have always tried to honor our ways and bring pride to my father's lodge. She paused, gathering her courage for what would be the most dangerous words of her life. When I was a child, it was decided that I would marry Dakota to strengthen our alliance with his band. I accepted this fate as a dutiful daughter should, but fate, it seems, had other plans. She turned to look directly at Thaddeus, and the love shining in her eyes was unmistakable to everyone present. This man did not steal anything from me. I gave him my heart freely, knowing full well the consequences. If there is dishonor in what we did, it belongs to both of us equally. A gasp ran through the crowd at her boldness. By claiming equal responsibility, she was also claiming equal punishment. Ayanna, no, Thaddeus whispered urgently. Don't do this. Whatever happens to me, you must live. Your people need you. She smiled at him then, the same sad, beautiful smile she had given him by the creek. And I need you to know that you are not facing this alone. Chief Mop's face had gone ashen. By speaking as she had, his daughter had made it impossible for him to show mercy to either of them without appearing weak before his people. The tribal law was clear. Both the man and woman caught in such an offense must face the same punishment. My daughter, he said heavily, you do not understand what you have done. I understand perfectly, Father. I understand that some things are worth more than life itself. The old grandmother stepped forward again, her weathered hand reaching out to touch Ayanna's cheek. Child, your courage honors our bloodline. But courage without wisdom is like a fire without tinder. It burns bright and dies quickly. Then let it burn brightly, grandmother. Let our people remember that love existed here, even if only for a moment. War Chief Dakota had been silent throughout the proceedings, but now he rose from his place among the visiting Oglala warriors. He was a powerfully built man in his late 20s, with scars crisscrossing his chest and arms from numerous battles. When he spoke, his voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to command. I have listened to these words with growing amazement, he said, his eyes fixed on Ayanna. The woman who was promised to me as wife stands before her people and declares her love for another man. She speaks of honor while admitting to behavior that brings shame to both our tribes. He began walking slowly around the pair, his hand resting casually on the handle of his tomahawk. By the laws of both our peoples, I would be within my rights to demand both their lives as payment for this insult. The white man's blood would wash away the stain on my honor. and the woman's death would serve as warning to other daughters who might be tempted to forget their duties. Thaddeus tensed, ready to throw himself between Dakota and Ayanna if the war chief made a move toward her. But Dakota continued speaking, his tone thoughtful. However, I find myself wondering about the nature of love itself. Is it something that can be commanded like a warrior commands his pony? Can it be bound by promises made before it even exists? He stopped directly in front of Ayanna, studying her face intently. Tell me, daughter of Mappa, if I were to claim you as my wife according to our agreement, would you come willingly to my lodge? Would you bear my children with joy, or would your heart remain forever with this white man? Ayanna met his gaze steadily, her voice quiet but firm. You are a great warrior, Dakota, and any woman would be honored to call you husband. But my heart belongs to another, and I cannot pretend otherwise. I would come to your lodge if commanded, but I would bring you only sorrow and regret. Dakota nodded slowly, as if her answer confirmed something he had already suspected. And you, white man? If I were to spare your life and take this woman as my wife, would you disappear forever into the wilderness? Would you promise never to return, never to seek her out or attempt to contact her? Thaddeus felt the weight of every eye upon him. The logical answer, the answer that might save both their lives, was yes. But as he looked into Ayanna's eyes, he knew he could not lie. No, he said simply. I could not make such a promise and keep it. My love for her is not something I can simply set aside like a burden I no longer wish to carry. A murmur of surprise ran through the crowd. Even facing certain death, the white man refused to lie or beg for mercy. Dakota actually smiled at his honesty. You are either the bravest man I have ever met, or the most foolish, perhaps both. He turned back to Chief Mop. Uncle, I release my claim to your daughter. Let it be known throughout all the tribes that Dakota of the Oglala bears no ill will toward either of these lovers. Their hearts have chosen their path, and I will not stand in their way. The gathered crowd erupted in surprised voices as people tried to process this unexpected development. Chief Mop stared at the war chief in amazement. Nephew, you cannot mean this. The alliance between our tribes will survive without a marriage neither party wants, Dakota replied firmly. Our friendship was strong before this arrangement was made, and it will remain strong after. Blood spilled in anger would weaken us far more than a broken betrothal ever could. He walked over to where his pony was tethered and began checking his weapons and gear. Besides, he added with a grin, there is a certain Cheyenne maiden whose father has been making inquiries about a husband for his daughter. Perhaps it is time I paid him a visit. The tension in the air began to dissipate as people realized that the immediate threat of violence had passed. But Chief Mop still faced a dilemma. While Dakota had graciously released his claim, the tribal law regarding Ayanna's behavior still demanded satisfaction. The war chief's generosity honors both our tribes, Mop announced, but the law remains unchanged. My daughter and this white man have admitted to improper conduct. Justice must still be served. Grandmother Winona stepped forward once more, her voice carrying the weight of age and wisdom. My son speaks of justice, but let us also speak of mercy. Let us remember that the purpose of law is to protect and strengthen our people, not to destroy them needlessly. She gestured toward Thaddeus and Ayanna. These two have shown us something we rarely see. Love that places the welfare of the beloved above personal safety. The white man could have fled in the night, but he remained to face judgment. My granddaughter could have remained silent and let him face punishment alone, but she chose to stand beside him. The old woman's eyes swept across the assembled tribe. I propose a different kind of justice. Let them be joined as husband and wife according to our customs. Let their love be sanctified rather than condemned. And let this white man prove his worthiness by living among us, learning our ways completely, and contributing to our survival in the difficult times ahead. The suggestion sent another wave of excited conversation through the crowd. Intermarriage between whites and Indians was not unknown, but it was still rare enough to be controversial. "And if he proves unworthy?" asked one of the warriors. "If he brings danger to our people or betrays our trust, then let his life be forfeit," Winona replied without hesitation. "But let us give love a chance to grow into something that strengthens rather than weakens our tribe." Chief Mop was quiet for a long time, weighing his mother's words against his responsibilities as leader. Finally, he spoke. "This decision affects not just my family, but all our people. Therefore, all will have a voice in making it." He turned to address the crowd. "Those who believe the white man and my daughter should face the traditional punishment for their actions, step to my left. Those who support my mother's proposal, step to my right." For several tense moments, no one moved. Then, slowly, people began to make their choices. Bear Killer, the young warrior whose son had been saved by Thaddeus's medicine, was the first to step to the chief's right. Others followed. Families who had benefited from his generosity during the hard winter, hunters who respected his knowledge of the land, women who had watched him treat Ayanna with obvious devotion rather than mere lust. But many also stepped to the left, including several of the older warriors, who believed that any deviation from traditional law would weaken tribal authority and invite chaos. When the movement finally stopped, the two groups were roughly equal in size. Chief Mafez studied the division among his people, his face grave with the weight of leadership. "The tribe is divided," he announced. "In such cases, tradition grants the final decision to the chief, guided by the wisdom of the elders and the needs of all our people." He walked slowly to where Thaddeus and Ayanna stood waiting, their hands now somehow intertwined despite his bonds. "Thaddeus Crane, you came to us as a trader and earned our trust through honest dealing and generous acts. But now you ask for something far greater, acceptance into our tribe as husband to my only daughter and son to my lodge." The chief's voice grew stronger, more formal. "Such acceptance cannot be granted lightly. You must prove yourself worthy not just of my daughter's love, but of our people's trust. You must learn our language completely, understand our customs and laws, and demonstrate your commitment to our survival and prosperity." He paused, his eyes boring into Thaddeus's soul. "If you fail in any of these requirements, if you prove false to your promises or bring harm to our people, your life will be forfeit and my daughter will become a widow. Do you accept these terms?" Thaddeus felt Ayanna's hand squeeze his tightly, giving him strength for his answer. "I accept them, Chief Mop. I swear by everything I hold sacred that I will prove worthy of the trust you place in me." The chief nodded slowly, then turned to his daughter. "And you, Ayanna? You choose love over duty, passion over prudence. You risk not just your own life, but the stability of our entire tribe. Are you certain this is the path you wish to walk?" "I am certain, Father. This man has shown me that love and honor can exist together, that choosing the heart's path does not mean abandoning responsibility. I will help him learn our ways, and together we will serve our people faithfully." Chief Mop was silent for another long moment, then he drew his knife from its sheath. Several people gasped, thinking he had decided on the traditional punishment after all. But instead of raising the blade in threat, he used it to cut the ropes binding Thaddeus's hands. "Then let it be as my mother has suggested. You will be wed according to our customs at the next full moon, 3 days hence. Until that time, you will both remain under the close watch of the tribal elders to ensure no further impropriety occurs." The crowd erupted in mixed reactions. Cheers from those who supported the decision, grumbling from those who opposed it, and excited chatter from everyone trying to process what had just happened. But Thaddeus heard none of it. All his attention was focused on Ayanna's radiant smile and the knowledge that somehow, impossibly, they had found a path through the darkness that would let them build a life together. Chief Mop raised his hand for silence once more. "Let all who witness this day remember, justice tempered with mercy makes us stronger than justice enforced through fear. Love that accepts responsibility and embraces sacrifice honors our people more than passion that thinks only of itself. As the formal gathering began to disperse, Grandmother Winona approached the couple with tears of joy streaming down her weathered cheeks. "You have been given a great gift," she told them quietly. "Do not waste it. The path ahead will not be easy, but if you walk it together with wisdom and courage, it will lead to happiness beyond your imagining." The old woman pressed a small bundle wrapped in soft doeskin into Ayana's hands. "Your wedding dress, child. I began sewing it the day you were born, not knowing who would stand beside you when you wore it. Now I know the spirits guided my hands truly." As the sun reached its zenith overhead, painting the prairie in shades of gold and amber, Thaddeus and Ayana walked slowly toward the village, surrounded by the people who would soon become their extended family. The medicine pouch she had given him still rested against his heart, but now it carried new meaning. Not a token of impossible love, but a symbol of the courage required to transform that love into something lasting and real. 3 days later, under the light of the harvest moon, they would speak the ancient vows that would bind their lives together. But already, standing in the dust and heat of that judgment circle, they knew they had crossed a threshold from which there could be no return. The wedding lodge stood at the heart of the village like a beacon against the gathering storm clouds. Buffalo hides stretched taut over cottonwood poles, decorated with intricate beadwork that told the story of Ayana's lineage through 7 generations. Sacred sage burned in clay bowls, sending spirals of purifying smoke toward the darkening sky. Thaddeus adjusted the ceremonial shirt Grandmother Winona had made for him, its soft buckskin adorned with porcupine quills dyed in blues and reds. His hands trembled as he traced the geometric patterns, each one carrying meaning he was still learning to understand. The shirt felt foreign yet somehow right, as if he were shedding his old identity to become someone new. Outside the lodge, drums began their ancient rhythm, calling the tribe to witness the ceremony that would bind 2 hearts and potentially 2 worlds. The sound resonated through his chest, matching the wild beating of his pulse as anticipation and terror warred within him. Bear Killer appeared at the lodge entrance, his stern expression softened by the hint of a smile. "It is time, brother," he said in Lakota, using the word deliberately. Together they walked toward the ceremonial circle where the entire tribe had gathered. Torches flickered in the evening breeze, casting dancing shadows across painted faces and elaborate headdresses. Chief Mop sat on his elevated platform, wearing his most formal regalia. The eagle feathers in his war bonnet caught the firelight like captured stars, but Thaddeus saw none of this. His entire world narrowed to a single figure emerging from the women's lodge on the opposite side of the circle. Ayana moved with the grace of flowing water, her wedding dress a masterpiece of traditional artistry. The white buckskin gleamed like fresh snow in the torchlight, decorated with thousands of tiny beads that created patterns of flowers, animals, and sacred symbols. Her long black hair had been braided with strips of ermine fur and blue ribbon, and silver ornaments caught the light with every step. Yet it was her eyes that stole his breath. Dark as midnight but blazing with joy and love, they found his across the crowded circle and held them with magnetic force. In that moment, all his fears dissolved. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together. The ceremony began with prayers offered in the 4 directions, honoring the spirits of earth, air, fire, and water. Thaddeus followed whispered instructions, raising his arms and voice at appropriate moments, feeling the ancient words flow through him even when he did not fully understand their meaning. Grandmother Winona stepped forward as the marriage speaker, her voice carrying clearly across the silent crowd. "Great Spirit, we gather under your watchful eye to witness the joining of 2 hearts, 2 lives, 2 peoples. Bless this union with strength to weather all storms, wisdom to resolve all conflicts, and love deep enough to last beyond the counting of winters." She beckoned them to approach, guiding them to stand facing each other in the center of the circle. A beautiful painted buffalo robe was spread at their feet, symbolizing the prosperity and protection they would share. Thaddeus Crane, you come to us from the land of the rising sun, bringing knowledge of the white man's world and tools that serve our people. Do you promise to use this knowledge always for our benefit, never for our harm? I promise, he replied, his voice steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm him. Do you promise to learn our ways completely, to raise your children in the traditions of their mother's people, and to defend this tribe with your life if necessary? I promise. Do you promise to love, protect, and cherish Ayanna through all the seasons of your lives, in times of plenty and times of want, in sickness and in health, until death claims one of you? I promise, he said, looking directly into Ayanna's eyes. Winona turned to her granddaughter. Ayanna, daughter of Moppet, child of my heart, you have chosen a path that requires great courage. Do you promise to help this man become truly one of our people, to be patient as he learns our ways, and to stand beside him as he proves his worthiness? I promise, grandmother. Do you promise to love, support, and honor Thaddeus through all the challenges ahead, to bear his children with joy, and to be his partner in all things until your spirit's journey to the next world? I promise with all my heart. The old woman nodded and reached for a ceremonial pipe carved from red stone and decorated with eagle feathers. She lit it with a burning brand from the sacred fire and offered it first to the four directions, then to Thaddeus. Smoke with us, son of my heart. Let the sacred tobacco carry your vows to the spirits, sealing your promises for all time. Thaddeus accepted the pipe with reverence, drawing the smoke deep into his lungs before passing it to Ayanna. She smoked as well, then handed it back to her grandmother, who offered it to Chief Mab and the other elders. When the pipe had made its complete circle, Winona took his right hand and Ayanna's left, joining them together with a strip of soft deerskin. As your hands are bound, so are your lives. What troubles one will trouble both. What brings joy to one will bring joy to both. You are no longer two separate beings, but one spirit dwelling in two bodies. She wrapped their joined hands with additional strips of hide in the four sacred colors: white for the north and wisdom, red for the south and power, yellow for the east and illumination, black for the west and introspection. Walk the sacred path together. Face the rising sun each morning with gratitude for another day to love each other. Honor the setting sun each evening by sharing the lessons you have learned. The drumming resumed, accompanied now by voices raised in the ancient wedding songs. Thaddeus and Ayanna, their hands still bound together, walked slowly around the sacred fire 4 times while the tribe sang their blessings. With each circuit, Thaddeus felt more deeply connected not just to Ayanna, but to all the people watching them with such hope and faith. When the ceremonial walking was complete, Chief Mop rose from his seat and approached the couple. In his hands he carried 2 items, a beautifully beaded pipe bag and a steel knife with an intricate silver handle. My daughter, you are now wife to this man. Love him well, but never forget that you are also daughter to this tribe. Your first loyalty must always be to our people's survival and prosperity. He placed the pipe bag in her hands. Keep the sacred pipe safe and let its smoke carry your family's prayers to the spirits whenever troubles arise. Turning to Thaddeus, he offered the knife. My son, for that is what you are now, this blade belonged to my father and his father before him. It has defended our people in times of war and provided for them in times of peace. Use it with wisdom and courage. Thaddeus accepted the knife with deep reverence, understanding the magnitude of the trust being placed in him. I will honor the memory of those who carried it before me, Father. The formal ceremony concluded with a great feast that lasted until the first hints of dawn touched the eastern horizon. Buffalo meat roasted over open fires, supplemented by dried corn, wild berries, and sweet cakes made with honey. Everyone ate, laughed, and told stories, welcoming the new couple into the community with genuine warmth. But even in the midst of celebration, Thaddeus noticed the worried glances exchanged between the older men, the hushed conversations that stopped when others approached. Something was troubling the tribal leaders, something beyond the unusual circumstances of his marriage to Ayanna. His questions were answered 3 days later when a dust cloud appeared on the southern horizon, resolving into a column of blue-clad cavalry soldiers riding hard toward the village. At their head rode a man Thaddeus recognized with a sinking heart, Colonel Marcus Pemberton, the new commander at Fort Robinson, known throughout the territory for his harsh treatment of Indian tribes. Chief Mapi called an emergency council meeting as the soldiers made camp just outside arrow range of the village. The message they carried was brief and ominous. All Lakota bands were ordered to report to the reservation within 30 days for relocation to new lands in Oklahoma Territory. Any who refused would be considered hostile and dealt with accordingly. They want to move us 1,000 miles from the graves of our ancestors, Mappa said heavily as he addressed the gathered warriors and elders. Away from the sacred places where our people have lived since the world was young. The land they offer is desert, added an old man named Crow Feather. Nothing grows there but scrub brush and rattlesnakes. They might as well order us to dig our own graves. The debate raged for hours. Some argued for compliance, believing that resistance would only bring greater suffering. Others demanded that they fight, preferring death to exile from their homeland. Still others suggested fleeing north to Canada, where Sitting Bull and his followers had found sanctuary after the battle at Little Bighorn. Throughout the discussion, Thaddeus remained silent, knowing his opinion would carry little weight in such matters. But when Chief Mop finally asked for his thoughts, he chose his words carefully. The colonel is not a reasonable man. I have seen how he treats tribes that cooperate and those that resist. The outcome is the same. He takes what he wants and destroys what he cannot use. Compliance will only delay the inevitable. Then you counsel war? Asked Bear Killer. I counsel survival. This band numbers barely 200 souls, counting women and children. Pemberton has 500 soldiers at the fort, with more available if needed. A direct fight would be suicide. He paused, feeling the weight of every eye upon him. But there might be another way. I know trails through the mountains that the army has never mapped. I know places where a small band could hide until this madness passes. And I know people in Denver City and beyond who might help if approached carefully. Chief Mop leaned forward, his interest clearly piqued. You speak of hiding like hunted animals. I speak of surviving long enough to see better days. The white men are not united in their hatred of your people. Many oppose these forced removals, and their voices grow stronger each year. Time may be our greatest ally. The council continued deep into the night, but by dawn a decision had been reached. The tribe would appear to comply with the relocation order, moving slowly toward the designated assembly point. But instead of reporting to the army, they would slip away into the high country using trails known only to the most experienced hunters. It was a desperate gamble that would require perfect timing and no small amount of luck. But as Thaddeus held his sleeping wife in their lodge that final night, he knew they had no real choice. Compliance meant slow death on a reservation far from everything that gave their lives meaning. Resistance offered at least a chance at freedom, however slim. The next morning brought new complications in the form of an unexpected visitor. War Chief Takota rode into camp at the head of a dozen Oglala warriors, their faces painted for battle and their weapons ready for war. "Uncle," he called out as he dismounted before Chief Mop's lodge. "I bring word from the northern bands. Crazy Horse has been murdered at Fort Robinson, killed while supposedly resisting arrest. The army grows bold in their treachery." The news struck the village like a physical blow. Crazy Horse had been the greatest war leader of his generation, the hero of Little Bighorn and a dozen other victories. If even he could be eliminated so casually, what hope did smaller bands have? More than this, Dakota continued grimly. Colonel Pemberton has sent word to all the reservation agencies. Any band that fails to report for relocation will be declared hostile. Bounties have been placed on the heads of chiefs who resist, and their families will be imprisoned as hostages. Chief Mop's face grew ashen as the implications sank in. Their planned escape had become exponentially more dangerous, with every move watched and every trail potentially guarded. What do you counsel, nephew? I counsel what I came here to offer, alliance. My band has decided to head north to join Sitting Bull in the grandmother's land. We invite you to come with us. Together we are strong enough to fight our way through any patrol that tries to stop us. It was a generous offer, but Thaddeus could see the flaw immediately. A large war party would be impossible to hide and certain to attract military attention. The army would pursue them relentlessly, and the battle that followed would likely destroy both bands. Honored war chief, he said carefully, your offer shows great friendship and courage. But may I suggest a different approach? Two bands traveling together make a large target that cannot hide and moves slowly. But what if we appeared to separate while actually coordinating our movements? After much discussion, a complex plan began to take shape. Takota's warriors would make a show of riding north toward the Canadian border, leaving an obvious trail and even staging minor skirmishes to ensure they attracted military attention. Meanwhile, Chief Mop's band would slip away to the southwest, using hidden trails to reach a remote canyon where they could wait out the worst of the pursuit. The key to success lay in timing and coordination. Both groups would need to move simultaneously, maintaining the illusion that they were acting independently while actually supporting each other's escape. As the sun reached its zenith, marking the moment of decision, Chief Mop stood before his assembled people one final time as their leader in the ancestral homeland. My friends, my family, the time of choosing has come. We can walk willingly into the cage they have prepared for us, or we can risk everything for the chance to remain free. I will not command any of you to follow this dangerous path. Each must decide for themselves. Not a single person stepped forward to leave. Even the oldest grandmothers and the youngest children seemed to understand that some things were worth any risk. Then let us go with courage in our hearts and prayers on our lips. The spirits of our ancestors watch over us, and the land itself calls us to be worthy of this sacrifice. The village dissolved with practiced efficiency as lodges were struck, belongings packed, and horses loaded. Within 2 hours, no trace remained of the community that had existed here for 3 generations, except for the cold ashes of cooking fires and the trampled grass where children had played. The first day of travel passed without incident as they followed familiar hunting trails through rolling grassland dotted with stands of cottonwood and oak. But as they climbed into the foothills of the distant mountains, the terrain grew more challenging and the evidence of their passage more difficult to conceal. On the 3rd night, as they camped in a hidden valley beside a clear mountain stream, their scout returned with disturbing news. A cavalry patrol had been spotted following their back trail, moving fast and gaining ground despite the difficult terrain. How many? Chief Mop asked grimly. Perhaps 30 soldiers plus Indian scouts. They ride hard, stopping only to rest their horses. They will reach this valley by tomorrow afternoon unless something delays them. The options were limited and none of them good. They could try to outrun the patrol, but their group included elderly people and small children who could not maintain the necessary pace. They could make a stand and fight, but 30 trained soldiers would likely overwhelm their handful of warriors. Or they could try to hide and hope the patrol passed by without discovering their location. It was decided that the band would divide into smaller groups and hide separately throughout the surrounding hills. If discovered, each group was on its own until the danger passed. Thaddeus and Ayanna found themselves responsible for a mixed group including Grandmother Winona, Bear Killer's family, and others ranging in age from a toddling child to a warrior past his 60th winter. Their hiding place was a narrow canyon with high walls and a single entrance. They waited in tense silence as the sun climbed toward its zenith the following day. Then, carried on the mountain wind, came the sound they had been dreading, the jingle of harnesses and the rhythmic thud of many horses moving at a steady trot. The cavalry patrol appeared at the mouth of their former valley like blue-clad harbingers of doom, their Indian scouts ranging ahead to examine the ground for signs of passage. From their concealed position, Thaddeus could see the patrol leader studying the abandoned campsite through field glasses. Colonel Pemberton himself sat his horse like a conquering general, his uniform immaculate despite days of hard riding. When he spoke, his voice carried clearly across the distance. They were here recently. The ashes are still warm and the horse droppings fresh. Spread out and search every gulch, every cave, every hiding place within 5 miles. I want them found before sunset. The next hours passed like a waking nightmare as search parties probed every possible hiding spot. Twice, soldiers passed within yards of their canyon without discovering the concealed entrance. But their luck could not hold forever. The end came with heartbreaking suddenness. A child's cough, quickly muffled but not quickly enough, betrayed the location where Chief Mop's group had taken shelter. Within minutes, the hidden cave was surrounded by soldiers with rifles ready. From their vantage point, Thaddeus and the others could only watch in helpless anguish as their friends and family were dragged into the open with hands bound and heads bowed in defeat. Chief Mop maintained his dignity even in capture, refusing to show fear before his enemies. Colonel Pemberton rode close to the captured chief, leaning down from his saddle with unconcealed satisfaction. "Running Fox, also known as Chief Mop, you and your people are under arrest for violation of federal relocation orders." "I am called Chief Mop by my people, Colonel. I have broken no law except the white man's law that says an Indian cannot live free in the land where his grandfathers are buried. Your grandfathers are dead and their time is past. The future belongs to civilization, not to savage holdouts who refuse to accept the inevitable." Pemberton's voice grew harder. "However, I am prepared to be merciful. Tell me where the other groups are hiding, and I will ensure your people receive fair treatment during their resettlement." Chief Mop straightened despite his bonds, meeting the colonel's gaze with unwavering courage. A true leader does not purchase comfort for himself by betraying those who trust him. "Do what you will with me, but you will learn nothing that helps you harm others." As darkness fell over the valley, Thaddeus faced the most difficult decision of his life. He could remain hidden with his group, hoping to escape when the soldiers moved on with their prisoners. Or he could attempt a rescue that would almost certainly result in his death. Ayanna settled the matter for him. "We cannot abandon my father. If there is any chance to free him, we must try." The rescue attempt began 2 hours before dawn, when the camp guards would be at their sleepiest. The plan was simple: stampede the horses to create chaos while cutting the prisoners' bonds and leading them to safety. Everything went wrong from the first moment. The guard proved to be awake and alert, raising an alarm before they could reach him. Rifle shots split the night air as soldiers rolled out of their blankets and grabbed their weapons. In the confusion, Thaddeus managed to reach where the prisoners were held. Chief Mop's eyes widened with recognition and alarm as Thaddeus sawed at his bonds with the ceremonial knife. "My son, you should not have come. Save yourself and my daughter. Do not throw away your lives for old men." "A family does not abandon its members," Thaddeus replied, working frantically to free as many prisoners as possible. He managed to cut the bonds of 6 people before a rifle butt struck him behind the ear and sent him sprawling. Strong hands hauled him upright, and he found himself staring into Colonel Pemberton's furious face. "Well, well, what do we have here? A white man risking his life to save a bunch of savages. You must be the traitor who's been causing trouble." The colonel turned to his soldiers. "This man has chosen to throw in his lot with our enemies. Therefore, he will share their fate. When we reach Fort Robinson, he will join them on the transport to Oklahoma Territory." As the sun rose over the mountain valley, Thaddeus found himself bound alongside the people he had tried to save. The rescue attempt had failed completely, succeeding only in adding one more prisoner to the colonel's collection. But as he met Ayana's eyes across the distance separating their hiding places, he saw no regret in her expression, only love and fierce pride. She had married a man willing to risk everything for family and honor. That he had failed did not diminish the courage of the attempt. The journey back to Fort Robinson took 4 days. The prisoners were treated with calculated cruelty designed to break their spirits. They were given minimal food and water, forced to march even when exhaustion made every step agony, and subjected to constant verbal abuse. Thaddeus watched his adoptive family endure these hardships with dignity that shamed their captors. Not once did he hear a complaint or a plea for mercy. They supported each other through shared glances, whispered words of encouragement, and small acts of kindness that proved their humanity remained intact. Chief Ma proved strongest among them, using his presence and quiet authority to maintain morale even under the worst conditions. When Grandmother Winona stumbled with fatigue, he helped her walk. When a young child cried from hunger, he shared his meager rations. On the final night before reaching the fort, the old chief spoke to Thaddeus in a voice barely above a whisper. "My son, I want you to know that you have proven yourself worthy of our family's name. Your courage may not have saved our bodies, but it has preserved our honor. I should have found a better way. You should have been nothing other than what you are, a man who loves his family enough to risk everything for them. That is all any father can ask of his son." The words brought tears to Thaddeus's eyes, but also a strange sense of peace. Whatever horrors awaited them, he had found something precious, a true understanding of what family meant, and the knowledge that love could survive even the worst that humanity could inflict. Years later, when the story was told around campfires and in newspaper articles across the nation, people would remember the man alone who was seen with the chief's daughter, and how he was dragged before the entire tribe the next day. But those who lived it knew the real story was not about judgment or punishment, but about love that refused to surrender even in the face of impossible odds.